Hurricane Ike was a powerful tropical cyclone that steamrolled over the islands in the Greater Antilles before making its eventual landfall in Galveston, Texas on September 13, 2008. Hi, I'm Chris May, writer, producer, and host of This Day in Weather History, now in its second year from the Weather Network in Canada. Look, Galveston is no stranger to hurricanes. As a matter of fact, there was an eerily similar track to that of the 1900 Galveston hurricane, when this storm we are reflecting back on today took aim this day in weather history. It was the 9th tropical storm, 5th hurricane, and 3rd major hurricane of the 2008 Atlantic hurricane season when Ike developed from a tropical wave west of Cape Verde on the 1st of September. By the 4th, it had really built up a head of steam and had strengthened to a peak intensity as a Category 4 hurricane over the open waters of the central Atlantic while continuing on its track westward. Its first landfall befell eastern Cuba on September 8th, and then, after regaining its intensity, it made one final strike. This time, it hit Galveston, Texas, September 13th, this day in weather history. Due to just how massive Ike was, there was clear devastation stretching from coastal Louisiana all the way to Corpus Christi, Texas. Ike would also cause flooding and significant damage along the Mississippi coastline through the Florida Panhandle. Ike was ultimately blamed for at least 195 deaths, 113 of whom were in the United States alone. In a related and equally tragic story, 74 deaths were in Haiti. Haiti had one hell of a 2008. They had already been hit this same year by 3 other powerful storms named Faye, Gustav, and Hannah, and consequently were still trying to recover from their impact. So Ike was as ill-timed a disaster as anyone there could have known. Damages from Ike in the United States were in the range of $30 billion for 2008, but Ike also leveled $7.3 billion of damage in Cuba, $200 million in the Bahamas, $500 million in the Turks and Caicos, amounting to a total of at least $38 billion in damage all in. At its time, Ike was the second costliest storm of its kind in United States history. That was next bested by the likes of Hurricane Sandy 2012, Harvey 2017, Irma 2017, and Maria, yes, also 2017. Today, Ike is considered to be the 6th costliest hurricane in U.S. history. Welcome to year 2 of this podcast. Right now, you're listening to the full version of today's story on your favorite podcast provider. But there's also the daily podcast video short. They're shot right here in my podcast recording studio, so you get that perspective. But oftentimes, they will include visuals from that day's event, from when it happened, in weather history. So after listening to the full story, go check out the podcast video short on television or online anytime at theweathernetwork.com/weather history. In those billions of dollars that were lost, cattle ranchers lost 4,000 animals and more than 11,000 workers who then lost their jobs as a direct result of lost business. That was the beef industry. The coastal region is one of the richest in the world for its seafood. Galveston Bay, producer of 15 million pounds of seafood annually, was devastated. Heavy debris from the floor of the Gulf of Mexico was dumped on the shrimp and oyster trawlers and basically killed off any oyster reefs that had not already been destroyed by the aforementioned Hurricane Gustav, which struck just 1 month earlier. And the rich and world-famous Louisiana seafood industry suffered up to $300 million in losses due to the double knockout punch of Hurricanes Gustav and Ike in that same year. The storm went post-tropical the next day on the 14th, but did still drive a path north through the Union and into the Great Lakes region, affecting Canada. The remnants of the storm brought record rain to Windsor, Ontario, along with more widespread wind and rain damage across southern part of that province. Pretty devastating stuff for just one hurricane, but this was how powerful and far-reaching Hurricane Ike was when it made landfall in Galveston, Texas on September 13th, 2008, this day in weather history. Hey, do you like the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. If you have an idea, go right now to wherever you're listening to me and rate us if you would, please. It's on a 5-star system, and we would love as many stars as you can afford. So rate us, but then also review us. This way we can always stay on top of how you'd like to see the show evolve. Then remember to subscribe to this podcast. Click the subscribe or follow button right there on the very same podcast homepage you're listening on. You'll be immediately reminded that the next day is ready to listen to, and you also have access to every episode in the archives. It dates back to June 1st of 2020, so there is a lot that we got to get caught up on this day in weather history. Tomorrow is September 14th, and we're going into outer space for this one because of the Cold War space race between the United States of America and the Soviet Union. Great innovations and advancements resulted in the way that we analyze, observe, disseminate, and broadcast weather. On the 14th is when the United States fell behind the Soviet Union in that race on this day in weather history. With me, your host, Chris May.